Hey, it's syndicated radio talk show host, author, singer Al Cole, welcoming you to another edition of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. I come from CBS Radio. My shows are nationally syndicated, and I've helped pave the way to treating women, guys too, with the dignity that they deserve, and I do that through my show, People of Distinction, aired on top networks, including, you could say, the toppest, Apple's iTunes Radio Network, under their professional news talk division, airing CBS shows, Fox News, NPR, BBC, C-SPAN as well, best talk in the country, and around the world is Apple's iTunes Radio Network under News Talk, and I want you to visit my website as well. And you can hear the talk there, too, through Apple. My Apple stream aired on peopleofdistinction.org. Welcome, Dr. Jeanne-Rachel Salomon, to People of Distinction with Al Cole. How are you doing today?
Hello, Al. Thank you so much. I don't think I could have asked for a better introduction.
Well, thank you so much. And I know that you're going to do it justice in how you describe your book as well. Now, before we talk about your book, Soul Matters, Modern Science Confirming Ancient Wisdom, I want to my listeners to find out a little bit about your background, because it sounds like a stellar background here. Doctor. And you've done a lot of research into a lot of areas. Tell us a little bit about your professional background, and then we'll get into your book, Soul Matters.
Well, I'm originally an anthropologist, and in this function I studied with a lot of indigenous people in South America and Nepal, and in Northern America, modern shamans as well. And I was introduced to the method of soul retrieval. And it intrigued me so much that I thought I need to research into this. And well, then I got my doctor in natural medicine, my PhD in quantum medicine, and I found a way to look for that which I wanted to understand in modern ways. So allow me to talk about my book.
Yes, absolutely, and a wonderful background you have. So let's hear it about your book right now.
The major points are, I write about the shamanic healing methodology of soul retrieval. And I demonstrate that the method is highly relevant today. It's a form of trauma resolution. I provide evidence for soul retrieval to be factual. And my research shows that this millennia-old healing method is rooted in quantum principles, in the quantum principles of life, which are non-locality, entanglement, and discontinuity. Non-locality is really non-separability, and the discontinuity is known as the quantum leap. Like the electrode going around the atom, it is in certain orbs, moves in certain orbs, and it is either in one or the other, but it can never be seen in between. That's how quantum physics describes it, and that's what I found out with the soul that had been lost because of a traumatic event, and it resides in non-ordinary reality, and then I bring it back into ordinary reality. It's out there, and then it's in here, no trace in between. So let me go further about my book.
Mm-hmm.
To perform soul retrieval, the shaman goes into non-ordinary reality, with his brain in theta mode, and then going into maybe delta, even gamma mode. Non-ordinary reality is what quantum physics calls non-ordinary state of consciousness. The shaman is trained to journey to non-ordinary reality and operate there, locate people, lost souls, etc. That's what shamans always had to do, because they lived at a time when there was no computer, no internet, no hospital somewhere. They had to help themselves. And they were sensitive enough to feel into the field of consciousness and find themselves part of everything that is alive and exists. Modern physics calls this capability ESP, which is extrasensory perception. And it is used as remote viewing, for example, by the military. So it is the amazing capacity we all have. We don't use it as modern beings. We all have it in addition to our regular senses. We can be quiet, calm down, and feel into the field of consciousness.
Isn't that's stunning? And, we're going to take that and run with it. One of the things that I want to ask you here, Akashic records. Now, when you're talking about shamans and you're talking about other dimensional realities that shamans can visit, I believe it ties in to the Akashic records somehow. And we've had many people on the show talking about that. Yeah. Talk about that connection as well, please.
The Akashic records are not a shamanic term, but this is our contemporary understanding, backed up by Upanishads and far older cultures. So I, for myself, as a modern human being, I go to the Akashic fields as well in certain instances, but it's not part of the soul retrieval. It's not part of what I'm describing in the book and what I researched.
Okay. Now, with the soul matters. That might be a double entendre. Certainly, the soul does matter as a repository of wealth, of love, and of existence. When you say the soul matters, the soul actually, here on Earth anyway, it is linked somehow to that body-mind-spirit connection. So it does have to do with matter. And you're talking about quantum right now, maybe wave theories and a whole bunch of other things, but there is something of the soul that is connected to matter itself. Am I correct?
Oh, of course you are correct. Yeah, and that's what the indigenous people understood. They knew that we are not just body, but we are soul, meaning we have a spirit essence. And if that is missing, we cannot live. So that's why they came up with soul retrieval. Let me explain it. Back then, a traumatic event was maybe falling down a precipice while hunting for a wild animal for food. Then the tribal members brought the injured person back home and nourished the person back to life. And only then, after 2-3 days, when they realized the person will survive, the shaman went out and brought back the soul piece, because it is understood that under traumatic events, the soul piece leaves because it does not want to stay in a body that gets maimed and then dies. Because when we die, our soul leaves totally. And during a traumatic event, certainly a hunting accident, now it could be, today it could be a car accident, or it could be major surgery. So the soul, it's a kind of survival instinct for the soul. It moves out. And if the trauma was not too heavy, if the event was not too traumatic, the soul might come back. But if it was too traumatic, it stays out. And the shaman knew that in order for the person to be in the possession of his her 100% essence, she needed to go out and bring the soul piece back. And modern psychology knows that something is leaving under trauma, but they don't know what it is. Bessel van der Kolk even refers to soul, but he doesn't know where the soul goes, and he states that psychology is not totally successful in solving trauma, because what he found out, what neuroscience found out, is that the area in the brain where trauma is lodged is diametrically opposite from where language is situated. So what they found is that they can talk to a person for years and years and years about the trauma, but they might just fester it even more because they cannot reach it. It cannot be reached via language inside the client's brain. Shamans knew that intuitively. they went out, the shaman went into non-ordinary reality. Per spirit help us. I cannot go myself by myself either, because I have to have assistants who help me to traverse this area where souls stay when they have left a person. So they found out they need to go over there. They find the soul pieces with a certain methodology, and then they convince the soul piece, that it needs to return, because the person now is healed. The body is in perfect condition again to house the soul. The soul piece agrees. There's a certain way of for the shaman to take the soul piece and bring it from non-ordinary reality, where the shaman maneuvers in his theta brain wave state, bring it back into ordinary reality, where the shaman functions in a beta brain mode, and then blows this returned soul piece into the heart chakra and into the crown chakra of the client, and whoosh, healing starts.
Look at that. Hey, wish you could go to Amazon.com, and actually you can, to order this wonderful book, Soul Matters, Modern Science Confirming Ancient Wisdom, and its author, Dr. Jeanne-Rachel Salomon. And we love it on People of Distinction. Order that book and go to her website too. And you can make contact with her at SalomonSoulMatters.com. And you're listening to People of Distinction with Al Cole. And let's get, you're getting deep here. And maybe so deep that at this point my listeners are asking, well, what about me? You've been talking about shamans. You're talking about the soul. You're talking about such amazing things that I wanted to get back into the everyday lives of my listeners right now. Can you give us an example of how it would work with the everyday Joe and Josephine out there who suffers trauma and loses, I'm going to put it this way. Now, this is probably not the right way to put it, but loses their soul temporarily. Their soul is floating out there someplace. They don't know where they are, but the shamans do. You do. The everyday Joe and Josephine, and they're going through it all the time here on planet Earth. What do they do that, there's not a place where you can just visit a shaman, I don't think. You can't, all right, shamans for assistance here on 5th Avenue and the corner of 5th and 72nd Street or something like that. How do these people, everyday people, approach what you're talking about with that sort of therapy, Dr. Salomon?
There is a web page where people can connect and can check in the U.S. in each of their states, from Alabama to whatever, New Hampshire, Vermont. And there are trained shamans. They are trained, for example, by Sandra Ingerman, who is one of my main teachers. I studied with Michael Harner as well. He has the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And Sandra Ingerman has her webpage. It is www.shamanicteachers.com.
Ah, now that could help.
Yes, and there you can find me, for example, under Hawaii. And wherever you live, you will find a shaman. And all the shamans, or the shamanic practitioners, as we call ourselves, because we are not indigenous people, are highly trained. And if they are on this webpage, then you can trust them, because Sandra Ingerman would not allow anybody on her page if they would not be trustworthy. So that's a place to go to.
Mm-hmm. Did they have to actually see the person physically, like a doctor does, or can it be really done online these days?
Not online, but it can be done long distance, because it happens in the field of consciousness anyway, which is non-local. Here we come again into quantum physics. Of course, it's always best to be in the vicinity of the shamanic practitioner, so that one can look at each other. The shaman can feel into the needs of the client. It's always preferable, and then doing the soul retrieval next to each other, because there's an overlap of aura of client and shamanic practitioner. But it can be done long distance if the person cannot go where the shamanic practitioner is. So I do it both ways.
And when you say long distance, just so my listeners can catch up with that, what do you mean? Through vibrations? Well, how does one correspond in terms of long distance to somebody?
Yeah, it is done this way. Shamanic practitioner and client are talking on the phone or per email, and they get to know each other. The client tells the shamanic practitioner where something is not okay. If she was emotionally or physically abused, if there were major incidents, for example, losing a loved one, having been in an accident, having had major surgery, these are all cases for soul loss. And the client doesn't need to tell the practitioner everything, because the practitioner then goes out into the field, talks to her spirits. They know more than the client has told the practitioner. And I come back to that in a short while. So there is a connection established between client and shamanic practitioner, and then a time is set aside for the soul retrieval to happen, where the client is in a contemplative mode, has refrained from alcohol and is at home and awaiting what is about to happen, while the client, the shamanic practitioner at that time, performs the soul retrieval and then blows long distance through the field of consciousness the returned soul piece into, by imagination, the heart chakra, the crown chakra of the client. And there's a little decorum back and forth, and then the shamanic practitioner sends an email to the client or phones the client and tells the person what has happened, and then they go back and forth. The client feels into what has returned, the exchange ideas. And the benefit for the client is that, for example, strange behavioral patterns the client always had are suddenly understood, and they fall by the wayside. For example, some clients, they felt stuck, they had restricted emotional capacities, and all this then falls away. Or certain physical oddities find explanations and they dissolve. For example, one of my clients, one of his legs didn't function properly, and he never understood what that was. Well, I learned something had happened during the birthing process where that particular leg had been injured. So everything explained itself suddenly. And emotional oddities suddenly make sense. For example, a person was always afraid of water, and then it turns out the person drowned in a former lifetime. Or physical healing can happen. Shamans know that even organs and body parts like bones, wrists, kidney, heart have their own soul piece, and that can be brought back, and suddenly bones that never healed before can heal because they have their soul essence back. And I have experienced all of this. So these are all my personal experiences with clients. It's always amazing. For example, I learn things when I'm out in non-ordinary reality and talk to my spirit helpers. They inform me about things the client hadn't told me about, and I had no way to know about. And then I come back and tell my client about this and say, well, I don't know if it makes literal sense or if it's just metaphorical, what I was told by the spirit. So it's up to you, the client, to decipher. And then the client said, for example, oh yeah, it was, I felt as I would be drowning in my emotions. Or the client said, yeah, I was really drowning when I was a child, but I got rescued.
Mm-hmm.
And or a client tells me, I was born with a big hole in my heart, but while I was a young child, it healed itself. But we learned that the physical heart had healed, but it had not gotten back its soul energy. And the spirits told me, since I was doing soul retrieval anyway, oh, by the way, bring this soul piece back as well. I said, well, I like to contradict my spirit helpers at times. I know I shouldn't, but I told them my client didn't tell me anything about this problem. They said, oh, come on, just do what we tell you. Okay, I obey, and then it turns out, of course, it's correct.
Absolutely.
So,
Wonderfully put. And now I want to ask you something. I'll expand the this spotlight interview a little bit more because this is really a gripping subject. I want to ask about the L word here. Now, believe it or not, I've got a contract with the universe that every show I have to mention at least one time the L word. And the L word is love. And I haven't heard that word yet, and I haven't used, well, I did use it in the introduction. Where does love come in all of this process that you were talking about, Dr. Salomon?
in my opinion, the whole universe exists because of love.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to insult anybody, but let's take the word God. I like the Hebrew way. G''D. This word is a placeholder for that which we cannot fathom. We can call it Ein Sof, Hashem, the creator, the source. We don't know what it is, but we all have a sense that it is there and that by its own creative force and love, it created it. And I was told in a spiritual download while I was writing my dissertation, I was suddenly nailed to the ground, metaphorically, and I was told that God, this source, Hashem, Ein Sof, wanted to know itself in as many facets as possible, and therefore it created everything that is in existence. Mm-hmm. Trees, birds, mammals, humans, mountains, lakes, the water, oxygen, everything that exists comes out of the love of this entity, this great creator that wanted to know itself, wanted to see itself. And in order to do this, it had to create something outside of it.
Well, there you go. Now, I'm going to make a reflection here, and then we're going to cap off the show with a little bit of possibility thinking.
I would love to tell you a little bit about the research I used in order.
All right, but see, now we're really extending it. But okay, if can you do that in just 2 minutes?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Here we go. For my research, I used two different modalities. I used quantum electroencephalogram to monitor both my brain as the shamanic practitioner and the brain of my client. And we found amazing things. My brain first goes into theta, and about 18 seconds later, the client's brain follows. We fall in sync. And while I look around, retrieve the soul piece, everything then mirrors itself in the client's brain until the solution has been fulfilled. The soul is back, and I have all the diagrams in my book. The second research method I used is dark field microscopy, where I used a drop of blood for me and a drop of blood for my client. They were put on glass plates, put under a dark field microscope, and they were observed while I did the soul retrieval. And it is amazing. The blood, at some point, the blood of the client showed symplasts, which are gestalt forms. If they would be real, they would burst the arteries. So they are not there in the blood directly, but the blood being conscious about issues of the body, because it circulates 24/7 in the body. It knows exactly where something is not quite correct. For example, if there is a broken bone that still needs attention, if there is a dark emotion that festers, if there is a scar that blocks energy flow. And these are gestalt forms that the blood in this one drop on the glass plate shows miraculously. And what we found out, what nobody has ever found before, retrospectively, such a gestalt form, such a symplast, would even jump over onto the drop of my blood without being in physical connection. It's kind of a post-it that the client's blood puts into the shaman's blood, just in order to make sure that this issue is addressed.
Well, there we go. And I'm going to address that issue right now to you, my listening audience, and weaving a lot of the stuff that our special guest, Dr. Jeanne-Rachel Salomon, has been weaving out there. To you, Soul Matters, Modern Science Confirming Ancient Wisdom. And it's available to you on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. Now, get this, people. Two lovers walking down the street. That is everyday life, let's say. And these two lovers are looking into each other's eyes with glee, with bliss, and, of course, with respect. Love and respect go hand in hand here. And as they're walking down the street, they're attracting the attention of many, many people. And those people who are attracted to these two lovers, they're looking in amazement. And they're saying, wow, look at those two people. They're holding hands, actually holding hands. They're even hugging each other a little bit, but in ways that we can accept. They don't look like they're particularly out of place. They don't look kinky about it. They just look natural. And actually, these two lovers aren't even noticing all of the onlookers. They're so locked into each other's energy. Now, that energy is so vital and so big time that it is shooting out, it's transmitting into the hearts and the souls of all of these onlookers. And these onlookers are saying to themselves, even if they don't say it in words, wow, how come I feel so good looking at these two people? And one of the things that's happening, heart energy here, people. We know the heart is the biggest area of electromagnetic energy. And as we now spark the heart, and we get within maybe even 4 feet of somebody, we can lock heartbeats to some extent with these people. These two lovers are starting to lock heartbeats. And as they do that, they're doing something else. They're under the fascination of love. They're locking heartbeats with themselves. Energetically, they're going to a different dimensional plane. Even though, they're watching where they're going. They're not tripping over each other's feet or anything like that. They're slowing down time. We know that love has a vibrational energy. Wow, speed of light there. And as we approach the speed of light, we slow down time. Modern science says so. And as we do that, we're more in the now. We hear that bandied about. You got to live in the now, live for today, that sort of thing. These two lovers are doing that. They are living for the now. Not that they're crazy or anything, and they're saying, oh, yeah, all right, now is everything, and I don't care about tomorrow. No, they'll still take care of their bills and everything else tomorrow. In fact, they might even do it better because they're happier. And happiness is a state of mind as well as a state of physical well-being. They are now going inward as well. Not only are they outwardly attracted to each other, but let's even talk about lovers and the lovemaking process here. It doesn't have to be graphic at all. But in the lovemaking process, these two lovers, as they maybe even kiss each other's lips, they're kissing each other's consciousnesses. And as they do that, they're going inward to the other person's consciousness, and they're saying, I know why I love you so much. It is not just your body. It's your soul that matters too. But not only that, I understand other dimensional realms right now because, whoa, I'm going so fast that I'm slowing down time. I have the time to see, finally perceive what's really around me. And as they go inward and maybe kiss each other's hands or whatever, and that hand goes into that heart energy, they're going on the inside. And they don't need a doctor to do that. They are exploring each other's physical bodies on the inside as well as the outside. And as they do that, now that blood that Dr. Salomon was talking about, they might even see that beautiful blood corpuscle, that white blood corpuscle that might have saved their lives last night. And they are honoring that. They're saying thank you. Thank you for this extra look into something extraterrestrial right now, even though they're still on planet Earth. We can do that too, people. It's very easy. And she spoke about mirrors, mirror imaging. What is on the outside is a mirror of what is on the inside, and vice versa. And once we visualize that, and visualization is an energy, we are into many time, space continuum. And as we're in these different continuums, we see the present and the future in our present. And we can visualize 1,000 years from now. Whoa, what's life going to be like now? We always ask that, and we say that we're eternal. Well, if we are, we can visualize some of the things that might even be happening 1,000 years from now, 20,000 years from now. As we visualize that, and she mentioned imagination at one point, we can imagine that, but that is energy that's coming back to us. We are living that out, and it comes back to us as a present of our present. And that makes all the difference. Now we are comfortable with our present, and we know that the opposite of love doesn't have to be hatred. It's fear. We don't fear the present anymore. We don't fear time or the passage of time, because in love, we are in love with that beautiful universe around us that got us here in the first place, whatever we call that. And that is a beautiful, beautiful soul and a beautiful heart. And it's all contingent upon something so effusive that we call love. And that is the beauty of what People of Distinction is all about, and what Dr. Jeanne-Rachel Salomon is all about, too, with her book, Soul Matters, Modern Science, Confirming Ancient Wisdom. And I'm going to ask you one other thing here, possibility thinking. Planet Earth is not the place where modern science confirms ancient wisdom on a day-to-day basis because of our institutions. It doesn't have to be because human beings don't want it. The institutions don't allow human beings to float into all of the beautiful areas that I was talking about and you were talking about as well. But if, in possibility thinking, sometime in the future, when we develop even more, 10 years from now, 20, 30 years from now, maybe next week, if we're really, really lucky, when soul actually matters to the everyday Joe and Josephine out there, and they know exactly what you're talking about because they are shamans. When we all are shamans here on planet Earth, what kind of Earth is that going to look like that it doesn't look like now? That's the last question. Tell us about that, Dr. Salomon.
I would say it's not the planet Earth, it's only Western man who is disconnected, because this understanding of everything being conscious, everything being interconnected is known and still practiced by indigenous people in South America, in Australia, in Africa, in Siberia, everywhere but the Western world. But we have a lot of people now trained over the last 30 years, per Michael Harner, per Sandra Ingerman, per Alberto Violdo, Don Oscar Mira Quesada. There are many people in the Western world who utilize this, even as they might be psychologists, they might be physical doctors. They don't tell their clients because the client might be upset or might not understand it, but they utilize their shamanic understanding of everything being interconnected and everything being conscious and self-aware.
Well, I'm going to take a stab at it myself here. the same question asked to Al Cole. What kind of world is that going to look like if we are all shamans? I said all. I didn't say part of the earth. I said every single human being on earth now is shamanistic. What that's going to look like, people, and again, this goes out to you, my listening audience. It's going to look like the terrain of babyhood. Yeah. What do you mean by that, Al? What do you mean the terrain of babyhood? One of the big things we have in common is that we're born babies. And that baby, I don't think is thinking, oh, I'm going to hate. I don't want to be here. Take me back wherever I was. Maybe that baby doesn't even know where he or she was preceding birth. No, that baby is full of love. That baby is saying, thank you for delivering me into life. I'm actually here. I made it. I'm alive. Blessings are given to that baby, and that baby wants to give back those blessings. That is shamanistic right there. And as that baby gives back the blessings, even in just childbirth, and saying, I'm here, that's the greatest blessing of all, just to be alive at all, that baby is wise. And it doesn't even have to know how to speak yet. It's wise in the vibrational energy of love right now, looking around with love-colored glasses. Now, guess what? If we had institutions that fostered that and said, all right, from there, you're going to learn even more about love. Whoa. We would now be quantumly different as a planet than we are at this particular point, or ever have ever been. To anybody's real knowledge, we can look back and say, well, there were certain sorts of societies, certain sorts of wisdom that have been passed on. But the ultimate wisdom of every single person being a baby again, an innocent and non-assuming baby, that is now the babyhood that is self-love. That baby has to love itself in order to survive. It would look like the parents have to be there, and certainly they have to be on the physical level. But survival for that baby is how much can I love myself in order to understand the reason for my birth. And as we love ourselves, now that love, it goes beyond ourselves. And we understand the reason for everybody else's birth. And that is the respect for everybody else's existence. And I'm talking about everybody. I'm not talking about some of them, or I'm not talking about 98%, and maybe there's that 2% that, well, they're no good. No, everybody's good. Everybody was born that way. And if we get back to that beautiful wisdom of innocence, of love, by just appreciating the fact that we're here and every once in a while taking some time out to explore, re-explore the love that we've given, the love that we've received at any point in our lives, and we bless that every single day. Bless that love experience that we've ever had. And now that is quantum, because we can build on that exponentially. One love experience can be 1,000, can be 1,000,000, 7 billion, and it can fill a planet. And as we do that, we're also helping out our universe in so many ways. And that is the message of People of Distinction. And that's why you have so many people around the globe who come here and they talk about their work in exemplary ways, and it all comes down to what they love about their work. Just like Dr. Jeanne-Rachel Salomon, who wrote the book, and she loves this, Soul Matters, Modern Science Confirming Ancient Wisdom. And run to her website, SalomonSoulMatters.com. That's SALOMON. Matters, soulmatters.com. Thank you so much for being my special guest here today on People of Distinction, Dr. Salomon. We wish you all the best with your book and all the best with your life directions. Thank you again for being my special guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you. It was a joy talking to you. I like it very much.